It's Wednesday. That means it's time for the Katie Halper Show on WBAI. That's WBAI.org or 99.5 FM. And we have a real treat of a show today. We are going to be talking to former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner, who is a pretty amazing politician, organizer, and speaker, and was a Bernie Sanders surrogate. And then we will be talking to Melissa Byrne, who actually was part of the Bernie Sanders campaign and is running for vice chair of the DNC. But first, a word from our not-so-corporate sponsor. In a world where major telecommunication companies have outsourced American jobs and helped the government spy on American citizens, wouldn't it be nice to use your phone as a force for good and not evil? Well, you can, thanks to Credo Mobile, a progressive phone company. Every month, they take a share of their revenue, more than $150,000, and donate it to incredible progressive organizations, and that adds up. They've already contributed over $81 million to organizations like the Brennan Center for Justice, Amnesty International, and Planned Parenthood. And Credo customers vote to determine which organizations get how much money. Not only does Credo fund progressive causes, but you get to use the phone of your choice with great service. Right now, Credo has a special deal for Katie Halper Show listeners. Go to credo.com/Katie, that's credo.com/KATIE, and get 50% off unlimited talk and text for 2 years. Plus, select smartphones are free. Just go to credo.com/KATIE, that's credo.com/Katie, or call 1-800-260-1254 and tell them Katie Halper sent ya. It's time your phone company represented your values. That's credo.com/Katie today. So go to credo.com/Katie today. And make sure you go to patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show for bonus content. I'm here, of course, as usual, with Gabe Pacheco. And, of course, Reggie Johnson on the engineering front. And, Gabe, how many times on the show, how frequently do I talk about Nina Turner?
Daily, constantly.
Right. I mean, what's funny is Gabe says I say it daily, and it's a weekly
I get texts from
right.
you.
It's true. It's
you
true.
text me daily.
I do. I always
constantly.
have Nina Turner on the mind. We are so grateful to be speaking with our next guest, Senator Nina Turner. Yeah,
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Here she is.
And she's here. Senator Turner?
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We're so excited.
Well, thanks for having me.
Former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner is a professor, and she is also was a very active and inspiring surrogate for Bernie Sanders. And she was also named as one of the top 100 most influential African Americans in the United States by The Root. And Cleveland's Inside Business magazine named her one of the top 25 most powerful people in Northeast Ohio. But I think you're one of the top 25 most powerful people in all of Ohio. And
well,
I'm going to say in the United States. Not that I have any business saying that, and I don't run a business magazine.
I receive it, though. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Thank you. And you're here. You're talking with me and my co-host, Gabe Pacheco.
Okay. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
And Reggie Johnson, our engineer
Hi,
chief.
Reggie.
Hello there.
I first remember being struck by you when I saw you speak, and I can't remember where it was. I just remember being worried that you were such a talented speaker that you were going to maybe overshadow Bernie Sanders. That was the one thing my one worry. But I remember then that you actually were in the news over a certain bill that you tried to pass about men's health.
Oh, my goodness. That was my erectile dysfunction bill.
Yes.
And I introduced that bill a few years ago.
Well, so far this year, less than a quarter into 2012, 430 reproductive-related bills have surfaced in states across the country. But now a state senator is calling for equal rights for men, introducing a bill for Viagra. Before a prescription is written, men would have to see a sex therapist.
Can you remind
Yes.
our listeners about that?
I introduced that bill a few years ago. I was just really fed up with my Republican colleagues all across the country, but also in my home state, introducing bills that really interfered with a woman's right to make a decision about her body, whatever that decision is. And I wanted to fight back. So I took remnants of a bill called the Heartbeat Bill, which since I've left the legislature, unfortunately, has passed. But I took the language from that bill, and my staff and I worked on another bill to deal with men's erectile dysfunction, which, rooted in science, some of those pills have some really pretty bad side effects, could happen in terms of priapism or heart conditions, that kind of thing. And so I decided to introduce a bill to tell men what to do with their bodies, because I was not in the legislature to help move, education or infrastructure or small businesses. I was there to help the feeble-minded men of the world make medical decisions. So within my bill, a man would have to get a signed affidavit by their significant other attesting to the fact that they have challenges, get a sex therapist to talk to them on a regular basis to determine whether it's psychological or physical.
That's right. A lot of times it is psychological.
Yeah.
But the bill made a really strong, I did, use satire to talk about a very real issue in this country, which is far too many elected officials are wasting time, trying to tell grown women what to do with their bodies instead of using the people's power to make their lives better in terms of infrastructure, small businesses, investing more money in education, you name it. Those are the types of things that we should be doing. But that bill made an international splash.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a really important symbol of a certain type of politics. I mean, obviously, we're not offering legislation like you are, but one of the things we do is we do try to make things funny or use humor to get people's attention about things that can be really depressing. And
erectile dysfunction is super depressing.
I think this is more upsetting to Gabe than the wall, maybe. And Gabe,
I mean, that's important,
has relative in Mexico, but I think that this is outweighed.
Mm-hmm. But it's like generations back, so I wouldn't see them anyway.
It's true.
But erectile dysfunction is a bummer. I've heard. I don't know.
If there's one way, but it's true. Like, if there's one way we could motivate a lot of people, if we could start a rumor that Trump is going to take away people's Viagra or something, to use it all himself, that's not so unbelievable, actually. But Senator Turner, I wanted to ask you about what you think the role moving forward is of the Democratic Party. And I see a lot of tendencies towards not blaming people, not talking about what happened, not looking back. We have to look forward. We just have to defeat Trump. But it seems to me that we can't really defeat Trump if we don't learn from the mistakes that were made, not only just this past election, but certainly then, but kind of more overall and generationally, as you put it in an interview I read with you, among the Democratic Party.
Yeah, Kate, you really hit the nail on the head. In order to move forward, we do have to learn from our past, and we do have to look back. And even just our recent past, just what happened during the primaries of 2016, we cannot pretend like those things did not happen. And the way forward is to confess our sins and to figure out how we go forward with everyone. And so this is not just about being a Democrat. This is about being a conscious human being. I want all conscious human beings to unite. And if you believe, in the same spirit that Senator Bernie Sanders had, that the working poor and middle class in this country deserve better, that we need to make sure that we educate our young people so that they're not saddled with college debt in one hand and a college degree in the other, that Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare should be protected, that people should grow up in safe neighborhoods and believe in a future for their children that is better than theirs, that universal health care is a moral and an economic. It's a moral right for me. To me, it's the morally right thing to do, but it is also an economically viable thing for this country to do. If you believe those things, then for me, it doesn't matter your political affiliation. We must unite. And I'm going to tell you something, we have to start winning elections. So we know that this is primarily a two-party system. Shout out to the third-party folks that challenged the two-party major system, because as Frederick Douglass once said, power conceives nothing, and I'm paraphrasing him, without a struggle. It never has and it never will. Right. And so we have to challenge people, and that comes from the grassroots. So even in people's disappointment about the outcome of the election, and make no mistake, there are millions of people who are disappointed, but there are millions of people also who are happy about this outcome.
Right.
And so what are we going to do to reach out to all of our sisters and brothers in this country to, as Stephen Covey once said, to seek first to understand and then to be understood instead of talking down to people and calling them names? That is really, but those of us who are on the progressive side,
yes,
we got to win elections.
Exactly.
Because we can have the most progressive platform, which the Democrats did this time around, but that means nothing unless you have the power to execute it.
Right.
And in order for us to have that power, we need people of good consciousness to be involved, but we also need people of good consciousness to run for office, and we need to win those offices so then we can push those policies that we believe are in the best interest of the people of this country and, by extension, the world. So we have to organize, and we have to win.
Right. You know, it's funny, even when you just refer to third-party brothers and sisters, it's so important and so different from what you usually hear from people who are part of have any relationship to the Democratic Party, which is a shaming and a blaming, right? I mean, Rachel Maddow blamed the election on Jill Stein. Paul Krugman still does that. I think he needs to have his Nobel Prize revoked. But it's so important, and it speaks to what you were talking about in terms of seeking to understand before you're trying to be understood.
Yeah, that's Stephen Covey, Katie. Now, I can't take credit for that.
No,
and I don't want him to lose his Nobel Prize. I just want to say that, you know, people have a right in this country to have a different opinion. What I don't like is that we tear people down. You know, I was just in Emporia State University, and I spoke there. I gave a lecture about MLK, and I think we can really take a page from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, not just on MLK Day, but just living that way, you know, our lives on a regular basis. And one of the things that he said, you know, he said that only light can move darkness, that darkness can't do away with darkness, but light can. And so we have to be hard on the issues and soft on people, that we don't have to tear people down personally to disagree with them. And one of my concerns about what is happening in this political environment, and not just because Mr. Trump was elected, I see lots of people on the left and lots of people in the Democratic Party who will stand up and say, love Trump's hate. But at the same time, they're on social media calling people who don't believe the same way they believe names.
Right.
So all of us have the capacity for great goodness, and we also have the capacity to do bad and to hurt people. And so even if we disagree with people, hard on the issue, but soft on people.
That's great. I'm gonna make that an Instagram, definitely.
Or a tattoo.
A tattoo. I wouldn't. If I had to get a tattoo, I would get that. But you have you come from a mixed family, as you said. You're very brave. You've spoken about your non-traditional mixed family. Senator Turner has a conservative Republican brother.
I do.
She does.
And he's the second oldest. I'm the oldest of 7 children, and he's the second child.
It's not you. Don't blame yourself. I know as the oldest, it was your job to protect him. It's not you. I'm just kidding. But you say how that gives you insight, and I think that's really important. And I used to be a kind of stereotypical liberal, but there is this interesting divide I think we're seeing among the left, where you have people who call everyone bigots, and people who will kind of acknowledge bigotry but not cast the person as an irredeemable bigot. And like you were saying, we have to win elections. So my thing is that I actually, like you, I think have a kind of more empathetic embrace of people and want people who may say bigoted things to be reached out to so that they're no longer bigots. Like, that seems to be the good thing in the best interest of everyone, including the people at the receiving end of bigotry. And
take it from me as an African-American woman, baby, I have, seen it, heard it, have had relatives in my family who are much older and came up in a different generation, tell stories about it. So I get it. But, this country, unfortunately, was founded on bigotry. It was, and sexism. And we are all socialized in a country that has made enormous progress. Don't get me wrong, but a country that was founded by taking away the land of our Native American sisters and brothers, enslaving our African and then second, third, fourth, fifth generation African American sisters and brothers, not treating women as equals. I mean, that is the story of this country. But one of the things we can take great pride in is that through the blood, sweat, and tears of folks who resisted, grassroots people who fought, and some folks with titles that fought along the way, we have become, and we are, a nation of progress. And so I think it's just patently unfair, and I'm a historian, to just blame, racism and bigotry on one person. It didn't start with this person. It won't end with that person or certain people that we see that way. So it is our responsibility to really, try to work and understand one another. Now, if somebody's just flat out a racist and a bigot and they're trying to hurt people, that's totally different.
Right, exactly.
But if somebody is expressing themselves, First Amendment, hello, in a way that is not accepting, we, to me, have an obligation to seek to understand where they're coming from, to speak out against that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong, because First Amendment, I think, also gives us a responsibility. But I have said this before, I will say this again, that every Republican is not a flaming racist, and every Democrat is not some freedom fighter.
Yeah, and I think that the issue is, like you said, there's some people who are going to be lost causes, right? We'll never reach them.
Right.
And we shouldn't, so we're not going to waste our time on them. But there are people who I do sincerely think, and I don't think I'm just being naive, I think there are people who are sincerely potential allies. And one of the things that drove me crazy during the election was that people would use the way Bernie resonated among angry white men as evidence that he was racist and like Donald Trump. To me, the whole point is that he spoke to the same audience, but not only that audience, right? That's a big myth that he only had white supporters. But the fact that he could speak to this audience and offer an anti-racist, anti-xenophobic message is exactly what we needed. But I feel like people were so, I don't know if it was so blind, so fanatical about it, that they really thought that was a bad thing, being able to reach out to the very people we needed to reach.
That's right. The very people that would have helped, a Democrat win the election. Hello, the same people who voted for President Barack Obama ended up this time around in states like mine, Ohio, voting for Mr. Trump. So let's face it, absolutely. And I can tell you, as someone who traveled this country both with the senator and for the senator, that there were many people of color who were supporting him, many African Americans who were supporting him. He just didn't have enough time because he hadn't been running for president, for a long time. But he saw a need and he got in this race. I believe if he had more time. But, he is a man that in his 20s and, 21, I believe he was, fighting against bigotry at his own university, the University of Chicago. He didn't have to do that, but he did because he had heart-soul agreement. And someone's history, it matters. They're what they have done for the good, the causes of good, it does matter. And so, that really bothers me. Just because Senator Sanders doesn't necessarily express identity politics or talk about it in a way that some other people feel that he should, it's still unfair to brand him as someone who doesn't understand it, because he does. And all of us can benefit from sitting down. As accomplished as he is, as smart as he is, he doesn't necessarily know everything, just like you, your two co-hosts, none of us know everything, so we all can afford to learn from each other. But you're absolutely right. The way some people tried to turn that around to say that the senator didn't care or he didn't get it, he does get it. He gets it, and that's why he got in this race. He was fighting this race for all of us. But I take it from me. And the millennials, you guys' generation, across every ethnicity within this country in the millennial generation, Senator Sanders, hands down, combined, the votes of Secretary Clinton and now President Trump, hands down, in that primary, he outpaced both of them when it came to millennials voting. And so that says to me that the millennial generation sees a future where we are committed to political, economic, and social justice. That's what it says, and that to me is the beauty of the future, is that the millennial generation, they get it, and they know what kind of world they want to inherit and the kind of world that they want to leave for generations to come behind them. And that excites me even more than what we're going through right now, that millennials get it.
And what can we do? How would you like, or what are you doing? What is Our Revolution doing? And I don't know what your plans are for your future, although I know you have a show coming to The Real News, right? The Real News Network?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Certainly I am going to continue to be out there. Yes, as a member of our revolution, we are out there helping progressive candidates, standing up for progressive issues, like, for example, the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. We supported those measures in both California and also Washington State. This past elections, they passed on the state level, really trying to ready ourselves to continue to fight to overturn Citizens United for your listeners, issues like that. The senator was out in California, fighting very hard in other places, issues to try to bring universal Medicare for all. And when we have states and activists trying to push that in their individual states. So we're pushing for progressive candidates, not just pushing for them, helping progressive candidates, but also standing up for progressive issues. And I am really honored to be one of 11 kick behind
you can say
board members on our revolution. And, Senator Sanders lit the flame, but it's our job to keep the fire burning. And there are many progressive leaders all over this country. Some are millennials, some are Gen Xers like me, some are baby boomers, some have titles,
right.
Some are just everyday grassroots people, but all of us are fighting, putting a little extra on our ordinary, so that extraordinary things can happen in this country, for this country, and by extension, the world. And that is really what I want people to take from this, Katie, that, people may be disappointed, but we cannot give up.
Right.
We must fight, that every generation is charged with advancing social justice, political justice, economic justice for the next generation. And in the words of one of my favorite ministers, Reverend Dr. Otis Moss here in Cleveland, who actually marched with Dr. King, he said to me one day when I was feeling really disappointed in 2014 about all the voter suppression efforts that were going on in my state and across the country, he said, Senator, the struggle is forever, so we are forever in the struggle. And that's what I want your listeners to take from this, that we are forever in that struggle, and it is a generational one. It never ends. But the question becomes, what are you going to do for the cause? Marching is good. The family coming together is good. Us reassuring one another that we can change the world is good. But we have to take action, and that action, one phase of that action is in the political realm. You got to have the power, the political power, to make the change.
And what do Dems have to do to do that? And how do we push Dems to make changes and fight Trump without recreating this neoliberalism that is what helped get Trump into the White House in the first place?
Well, first of all, it starts with electing a new chairperson of the DNC, which will happen in February. And I think depending on who is elected will show, in my mind, if the Democratic Party is serious about turning things around.
Keith Ellison.
Let's get out there.
I just put out the name Keith Ellison, just randomly.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. I'm supporting Congressman Ellison, and that will show how serious this party is about changing. If that does not happen, I'm not so sure that the party is serious. So we will see, because it's in the hands of about 440 people. So to me, that's one step, because the party structure itself has to regain its integrity. Right? We lost integrity, and that is what is so biting about what happened in 2016. Not just that Senator Sanders was not treated fairly, but that the structure that is the Democratic Party lost a portion of its integrity during that primary election.
Do you mean Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Well, you named, yes. And
I was just wondering, I don't know.
Other leaders, that were a part of that. The
Donna
establishment
Brazile?
That was a part of that. People who sat back and watched this kind of...
And the people who are being hired by the DNC once again, and the David Brock types who are...
all of the above. We have to acknowledge that. I think Bernie Kratz deserve an apology.
Me too.
That the sins must be confessed.
Yes.
And that whoever is the next leader must say very clearly that what happened to Senator Sanders in the primary under their watch will never, ever happen to anybody, whether they're running for dog catcher or president of the United States, that in a primary, the DNC, by its bylaws, will be neutral, that no bodies, no fingers, no thumbs will be placed on the scale, and that once that general election happens, that's when it's time, to fight for, to do what is necessary. But until then, it won't happen. And so that kind of apology needs to take place. I fully do believe that there needs to be a healing within the Democratic Party, and that the people who were not necessarily diehard Democrats but who started to believe because of the candidacy of Senator Sanders, we have to go and get those people. But in order for the Democratic Party to go get those people, they have to show that we learned our lessons and that the leadership will change and that every person that works for the DNC understands very clearly what their role is, and that the D should matter. It shouldn't just be some letter, some symbol that automatically gets you elected.
Right.
It is about the value proposition of the Democratic Party, and we lost our way in 2016, and we lost because of it. And not only did we lose in 2016, I mean, let's face it, we have been losing a statewide election since 2009, statewide elections and legislatures, which is part of the reason why we are in the condition that we're in right now. It's not just about the presidency, but it's also about state senators and state reps and governors and secretaries of states and auditors and attorney generals, you name it. And so we have to stop saying that it's an off-year election. There's no such thing. Every single year there's an election that is important.
Right.
And we need people to come out. We need them to vote. We need them to run. We need them to care. And we need people who are elected to office to really do what is necessary to change the lives of the people who just elected them and stop whispering sweet nothings in their ears every time it's time to run, but when it's time to put up, they're nowhere to be found.
And you, I remember seeing you, I think it was on MSNBC, saying something about how Trump sounded like he listened to people.
But it really is about knowing and recognizing that people were suffering in this country. And Mr. Trump, like it or not, spoke to that hurt in a way that got him to be now president-elect.
And I think that it's so important, and it's brave, although I don't think it should be brave, but we live in a world in which it is brave, to actually acknowledge what people find appealing about Trump. And it's such a metaphor, I think, for the way that some Democrats and liberals just bury their heads in the sand and kind of kick sand back in the faces of other people at the same time. I don't know if that's physically possible. But this idea that there's such a sense of entitlement that we don't need to win people over if they're not already Democrats, right?
It's called an election for a reason.
Yes.
It's called running for office for a reason.
Right.
That means the person that is running owes it to the people who they want to vote for them to earn their vote. And that's every time they run. Every single time they run. It's not given to you. You don't own the seat, and we do treat these seats like that in this country. Unfortunately, we do. But you're running for the office.
Right.
So that means you have to win people over, and that's everybody, even people who we admire and support. It just really pains me how it became the other way around, especially in 2016. It was as if we owed the people that were running instead of them owing something to the people they're running to serve.
Right.
So we have to win people over, and for God's sakes, if we could just stop tearing each other down, to prove a point. It's hard, I know. But I'm telling you that social media it can be used for good, but it can be used for evil, and it's one of the most vile. I mean, I've been called everything but a child of God. Just because I am strong-willed woman, I am. I consider myself a Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, Senator Sanders Bernie-crat,
I like it.
Unbought and unbossed.
Nice.
And I didn't come this far as a leader in my community, in my state, in this nation. I stand up for what is right, no matter what, and what I believe is right. And I think everybody has that right, and we can debate the issues, but tearing each other down and thinking it's okay to hire professional trolls and some of the despicable things that I've seen happen on the left side, it just bothers me. So we got to stop saying love trumps hate unless we really mean it. And if we really mean it, then again, hard on the issues, but soft on people.
That's such a great thing. Got to make that. We're going to make that into an Instagram thing with you, obviously, using your image. Because it's too good of a quote.
Hey, before I go, I got to tell you guys a lesson I learned. Again, I told you I was at Emporia. I always mess that up.
I know, it's
State
a hard
University, and an 11-year-old, and I want to give her a shout-out. I'm not sure if she's listening or her parents.
We'll get it to her. We'll find it out.
But her name is Laura Baldwin, and when I talked to her one-on-one about some of the things that we're talking about right now, she said, what you mean is argue against someone's point, but not their character.
Wow.
An 11-year-old
That's amazing.
said that.
Wow.
Argue against someone's point, but not their character.
So was this during a Q&A, or she went up to you? Or?
Yes, it was during, no, you know what, it was after. She came up
so
after
cute.
because I was greeting people and signing autographs, and we were just extending our conversation. And she said the point that you were making in your speech was to argue against someone's point, not their character. Her name is Laura Baldwin. I met her at Emporia State University. And I just want to give her a shout out for being so brilliant.
Yeah,
and I hope that the grown folks take a lesson from the 11-year-old.
Yeah.
Argue against someone's point.
She should teach. She should be at the DNC. She should be leading workshops at the DNC, right?
Yes, she should. Can I just thank you three for all that you do?
Thank you so much.
And for having a sense of humor while you are doing it. We need that. But just thank you for being brilliant, Katie, Reggie, and Gabe.
Thank you so much, Senator Nina Turner. And we'd love to have you back whenever you have chance.
Anytime. My pleasure. And
thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator Turner. Thanks. Oh, my God. Sorry. Guys.
So positive. So much good energy.
We're going to add to the podcast, we're going to add some clips of her talking. She is the best combination of extremely respectful and positive, but feisty.
Well, she said everything that I was saying for even before the results of the election ended up turning out to be. And I don't know, when she was talking about talking at each other rather than talking to each other, I experienced that during the Women's March when I was talking to someone who had attended the march in New York City, and I mentioned about we all need to be responsible of what has happened during this past march. And I'm not going to mention her name, but she's a producer here at WBAI, and she said immediately when I said that, I am tired of the people picking on Hillary Clinton. And I said nothing like that. I didn't even go there. But since she went there, I said that, well, since you brought that up, what did Hillary did versus what did Donald did? How many times she showed up in Wisconsin?
Right.
Oh, it's because of the third-party people.
No.
7 million third-party votes went to them, and they should have went to Hillary. I said, none of the 7 million people owed them
and a lot
anything.
of them wouldn't have voted. Like, there's a question of whether they owed it right, but also the thing is, a lot of these people wouldn't have voted anyway.
Exactly.
They only voted for Stein. They wouldn't have come out of their houses to vote for Hillary,
because they hated vaccines.
Right,
that
but
was
just
the most
like
important
Nina
issue.
Turner said, entitlement, an assumption.
Yeah.
Oh, either this or the highway. Well, guess what? We got the highway, and a very badly paved one too.
Yeah, you're very right. You're very right. You know what? We're going to call in our next guest, Melissa Byrne, and she is running for vice chair of the DNC. It's very appropriate because, of course, we were just talking to Senator Nina Turner, and one of the things we were talking about is the significance of Congressman Keith Ellison's bid for DNC chair, which is, of course, opposed by Tom Perez, who is really a continuation of the Obama legacy. And can we play that clip of Nina Turner?
We can.
Okay, so we're going to play a short clip of Nina Turner just to give you guys more of a sense of how great a speaker she is, and then we're going to be talking to Melissa. Okay.
More than 70 rallies, all aimed to save health care, are happening today nationwide, led by Senator Bernie Sanders and some Democratic members of Congress. Participants are calling for Washington to preserve the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, and Planned Parenthood funding. And yesterday, hundreds rallied in D.C. to call for the protection of Americans' civil rights under the incoming Trump administration. Let's listen to a moment from former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner.
Brothers and sisters, I count it all joy to be here with you on this rainy afternoon, because this gives us just a little taste of what our ancestors had to endure. Now, we got troubles. This moment reminds me of a spiritual song in the African-American tradition, How I Got Over. My soul looks back and wonders how I got over. Now, sisters and brothers, we know we got over by the blood, the sweat, and the tears of sheroes and heroes, some whose names we American sisters and brothers with us this time. I think Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King said we may not have gotten here on the same ship, but we are in the same boat right now. We have been here before. And I know that you might be disappointed, but I want you to take solace in these words. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. The valley may be lower, but we've been here before. The mountain might be higher, but we've been here before. Because our mission for social justice and economic justice and political justice, and oh, by the way, sisters, we want our whole damn dollar. Say whole damn dollar. You see, the mission is so high, we can't get over it. And the mission is so low, we can't get under it. And the mission is so wide, we can't get around it. We might be disappointed, but we have been here before. And lastly, in the words of my grandmother, who was hailed from the South, born in 1913, Grandma could not read or write, but she could count her money. She kept her money in the Southern Ladies Bank and Trust with a handkerchief. Y'all know what I'm saying. When I asked Grandma, what does it take to be successful in life? She said, all you need are the three bones: the wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone. She said the wishbone will keep you hoping and praying because hope is the motivator, but the dream is the driver. The jawbone will give you courage to speak truth to power. But the most important bone of them all, the superfragilalistic expialidocious bone, hey, it's the backbone, because it will keep you standing through your trials and tribulations. And guess what, sisters and brothers? We can't have a testimony without a test. And we are being tested right now. Well, whether or not we got courage enough, hope enough, fight enough, love enough to do what is necessary. Hallelujah, somebody.
Hello and welcome back. We are really happy to be talking to Melissa Byrne. Melissa, are you there?
I am here. Hello,
Hi.
Katie.
Hi, how are you?
It's a hard question these days. I'm
right.
Okay, but the country is falling apart.
Right.
And we have so much work to do.
Melissa did work on electoral and labor campaigns, and most recently on pushing for free college and on Bernie's campaign. She is running for vice chair of the DNC. And also, I should add that the journalist Will Bunch aptly noted, you are a quote-unquote longtime brawler for social justice, which is quite the endorsement. And
I know. I've always wanted a moniker. I'm really happy to have that.
That's great. I wanted you to tell people, if you could, about this race that you're in. It sounds like very exciting, and why you are running to be a vice chair of the DNC.
Yeah, so like most things, there's more than just top of the ticket. So most people right now are focused on the battle between Ellison and Tom Perez and the other candidates for chair. So I have stepped up to say we also need real progressives running for other parts of Democratic leadership, and I chose to run for vice chair, so that way I can have my voice in the mix and bring organizing back to the party with the progressive values.
So what do you mean by organizing, and can you speak about your organizing history?
Yeah, so what I mean by organizing, it means making sure that the state parties are funded to have staff on the ground doing organizing every day of the year and not just the GOTV weekends before an election. It's about making sure that staff are trained in progressive values, making sure that they're there to expand social security, to make college free, to work on racial justice, to work on women's rights, and not just there to climb the ladder.
And your expertise is in field and digital organizing. So
yeah, so I'm the weird person that does both field and digital.
You're like ambidextrous?
Yeah, basically. So I see where they all intersect, and I think all organizing in the future is going to be a mix between digital and online, so I'm great to be doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm, pumped about that. And I worked on Bernie's campaign. I worked for Move On. I've consulted. I did Occupy. I was a big part of Occupy DC, Occupy Homes. I put my body on the line, so I've been arrested. And my friends and I were some of the first people arrested against the Iraq War. So I go way back into my organizing career when I was doing work for justice instead of going to class.
Oh, nice. Awesome. And what are the lessons that you learned from the Bernie campaign that you would apply to your being a chair?
Respect. The key part of the Bernie campaign was respecting the voting public. Respecting that they're smart, respecting that they want to get engaged, that they don't need gimmicks and emojis to get involved.
So you don't have to do the dab to get them to like you.
Well, Bernie did the dab and people liked it, but you do authentic. But yeah, you don't have to do stunts.
It wasn't dab in place of respect.
Right.
It was a dab on top of the
People
Sunday.
weren't like, what are your policies? And he was like, hold on a second, let me dab.
Yeah, exactly.
And after that dab, I'm going to just sit down with Mary J. Blige for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and hang out with Killer Mike and all of that.
No,
but it was like
but that was authentic, the Killer Mike thing. I was making fun of that painful interview between Hillary Clinton and Mary J. Blige, which honestly was so cringeworthy that it made me more sympathetic towards Hillary Clinton than I think ever in my life.
Wow, that says a lot.
Yeah,
knowing your views,
my complicated views about Hillary Clinton. Yeah. I think Gabe was nervous that we'd get something would happen to us. I think we both, the Clinton administration would lock us up for my anti-Clinton rants.
My biggest fear in the morning on November 8th is that we were going to win and then I wouldn't get a job.
Exactly.
It's too leftist.
Yeah.
I would much rather right now be fighting to get a job in the Hillary administration than playing cleanup against Trump.
Right. And what about in terms of organizing, more boots on the ground types of lessons?
Sure. So for the boots on the ground, it was having really good discipline. I'm really proud. I worked on the New Hampshire team. So I was the digital director there. So you got to see from up close and personal what excellent organizing looks like and how you build power. A lot of people are all about the gimmicks of this new big thing or this new big that thing or this app or this or that. But what organizing comes down to is, are you having conversations with people? Are people getting engaged? Are they showing up to help out? And do they feel valued and respected? And we were able to do that at scale in New Hampshire.
What are some?
And now we have.
Sorry. What are some? What does that look like in a real world way? Because all those points sound great, but they, let's say somebody wants to get involved with organizing. What would be one exercise?
One exercise. Say if you live in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and you wanted to organize.
You could be that guy, Stephen Avery, who was making a murderer. Sorry.
Or, if they say you want to be on the ground to, start defeating Scott Walker and Paul Ryan in their home turf, I know that's not Paul Ryan's district, but in that general area, you would invite folks over for a meeting. You would train them how to make phone calls. You would listen to them, and you'd get them on the phone. But if you want that's what a lot of, basic organizing is. But if you want to do excellent organizing, your first step is having a conversation with people, finding out their values, what motivates them, and really listening, and then being able to connect what they care about to why they need to join this fight. So there's this one thing that I learned a long time ago, was this phrasing of development of people into volunteers of issue, anger, hope, action. So you find out their issue, you find out what makes them angry, you show them hope as to what can be changed, and then you do the action from it.
Can you say that again? Those words? Issue,
anger, hope, action. And that's the process.
Anger, hope, action. It's too bad it doesn't make a very good.
I know. It's not very DC. If
you're right.
In DC, it would have a fancy acronym.
Right.
But it's authentic, and it's what it is, and it's what works.
Right.
And that's what brings it back down. I mean, and you need to play around with digital tools and be able to expand. Not everybody's going to be organizing in their own geographic area. People are going to organize across issues based on different parts of the country or based on their skill set. And so you build that up too.
What do you think needs to be Senator Turner was saying that she thinks that Bernie-crats are owed an apology. And she didn't say that in a way that was kind of petty. She's talking about how people need to kind of come clean with what they did and the mistakes that were done. What to you, as someone who worked on the Sanders campaign, but we're part of a bigger movement, obviously, and that's the whole point of it, what do you feel like people really need to acknowledge, not so that you feel better, but so that the party can actually be effective?
Sure. I think that what I would like to see, this is why I'm running for vice chair, is to make sure that the actual progressives in the party have a voice and feel heard, is that there are so many Democrat people out there who are Democrats who would be Democrats. If you look at the way that for Bernie, we won Michigan, we won Wisconsin, we had independent voters coming over to support us and our values, is people want people that are unapologetically for these views of free college, expanding social security, protecting abortion access, stopping trafficking, being aggressive on racial justice, stopping deportation. That these aren't scary, or as Bernie would say, like radical ideas.
Right.
And that we work to make it happen. And I think that's something that so many people that just come up the ranks of like inside. Sorry, there's a
no. It's
siren outside my house.
It's because it's the urgency of these issues. That's
so
why
much urgency.
The siren
into a different room of my house.
Yeah.
And so what I want to see the party acknowledge is that they have messed up over the years by letting the Rahm Emanuels of the party run the table on the issues. Like, people don't want the Rahm Emanuels. Like, I personally, as somebody running for vice chair of the Democratic Party, if I'm elected, I would do whatever is possible to make sure that Rahm Emanuel knows that since he covered up the murder of Laquan McDonald, that he's not welcome to be a leader in the Democratic Party anymore. That we need to have standards for our people.
You know what you could consider doing is sending him a dead fish head or dead fish. You know, he did that apparently.
He did do that.
Yeah, right? Was it a fish or a horse head?
I think it was a fish. We could have the March of the Fishes in Chicago.
Yeah, that was interesting. That's how dedicated he is to progressive politics.
So I think that's what we need. Like, I don't, I know people are angry at the DNC and they're bitter, but like Trump just signed the ban on people coming from Muslim countries into the U.S. He signed the executive order to build the wall.
Yes. Can you tell us
down the Park Service Twitter accounts? Although, can we just say like all props to radical people in national parks and their like alternative Twitter accounts?
Yeah,
they're giving me hope right now.
Can you explain what's happening there?
Yeah, like all of our nightmares are coming true. And he's just using executive orders, whether or not like some of them aren't actually legal.
Right.
He doesn't actually because he doesn't actually care about rule of law. So like he's putting out these edicts. I consider them more edicts than executive orders. So a lot of them aren't actually going to be able to be enforceable. The one banning money to sanctuary cities, that's not enforceable.
So
facts don't matter.
Right. And how do we like navigate that? Because there's so many awful things he is doing, and how do we know what to pay attention to?
Well, one, we have to pay attention to everything because everybody's lives matter, and that we can't say that like, oh, the environment like. No, I mean the ones that how much do we focus on something that's not implementable in the first place? That's what I mean. I don't mean there's a triage in terms of issues. Yes, I think part of it. So I think like what matters is we have to get ahead of the media game. So even if like the banning the money of sanctuary cities isn't feasible, it's out there in the media narrative, so it's going to drive it. So we need to have the team of folks who are working on that being able to like cut that media off about it. We need to be doing the same with all of them. And then we need to be working to make sure that locally that there are rapid response groups out there to be able to protect people that are going to be harmed by his policies. Okay. So any particular groups that you want to mention or organizations or initiatives? Because I think we're going to have to start dedicating part of the show to like real immediate actionable. Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you're based in New York where Mayor de Blasio has come out swinging to be able to have New York values be the norm. Nice. And you have Make the Road, which is leading on immigration reform and protection. We have Color of Change. There's Move On. There's a lot of tiny groups. There's all the new people that are organizing. So we're going to see lots of new groups and initiatives that are going to be coming out of like everybody getting engaged. And these are going to be some bumpy roads. Like things aren't going to be perfect. So I think part of it is like how do we navigate the bumpiness of everything, and that we don't start eating our own. Like people are going to make mistakes. They're going to make choices we don't agree with, and we have to figure out how not to like be in a mode of like constantly reacting negatively and to survive, because it's going to be the longest marathon any of us have ever run. And what else do you think the Democrats? Do you see any signs of Democrats learning their lessons? I see some. I see like these glimmers of hope. I was really impressed when the Ohio Dems immediately put out an email about the White House turning off the comment line and letting people know. Like I think the media, like a lot of times, like Democrats have outsourced really good social justice organizing to outside groups, and the party has been invisible. And what we need is the party to be visible out there, so the party to be putting their bodies on the line to stop at deportation, people in the party to be out there making sure women still have access to abortion, the party being out there locally, like serving folks in their community, so to have that visibility, so people associate the Democratic Party with the people leading the resistance and not just being snarky on Twitter.
With the Democratic Party right now, we're looking at some of Donald Trump's appointments, and there are Democrats who have been going along with those, with his appointments. And so sort of what's the takeaway on that? I think personally there's been some further disillusionment seeing establishment Democrats sort of crossing the aisle to work with the Trump administration.
Yeah, I think like part of that also, like we can't just react negatively to everything. I think this is like where the phase is if you're an otherwise like awesome senator and you make a bad vote, you need to have hard conversations with them. So the first step should be like finding out why. And if it's a bad reason, then you run a campaign about that. And it's kind of seeing like, is there a chess strategy? I think part of the problem is that Schumer is leading the Democratic Party. We have a new majority leader a new minority leader in the Senate. God, I wish we were the majority leader.
Right.
That would be, our life would be so much better. But I don't think, and Schumer's not the most progressive guy. You guys live in New York, so
right?
You're familiar with Schumer.
Yeah, and then he's fascist on Middle East. But moving on.
Yeah, so these are the things. I think like part of that is like seeing the game, and then making sure that we hold the line on Tillerson.
Right, but why? I mean, what in terms of the numbers? I mean, do you have anything to say about the strategy and what Democrats' choices are?
I think right now they don't have a unified strategy, which is part of the problem.
Right,
and that's that's the key problem. Like there should have been a unified strategy going in to all the nominations, but I'm also not willing at this point to start bashing people who are normally good. I think the Manchin and the Heitkamps, like they are just never good on things. So they can definitely keep taking flack.
Right.
But our ones that are generally good on issues, I think we need to like figure out how to trust them that they're seeing a path.
Right. But I'm not even being rhetorical. Like what could a path be? Is it
I think I want them voting no on everything.
You what?
To be like my idea is to have them. They should just vote no on everything.
Right. But I'm just asking like what is their strategic? What is their path? I'm not being like snarky or rhetorical.
No, I think that's part of it. Is that I think part of the problem with the Democratic Party is that everybody was so overconfident that Hillary would win.
Right.
That there was no strategy for Trump winning.
Right.
And so like, there wasn't a team that was like clustered and cut off from all the campaigners. Because during a race, you can't tell people who are on the ground fighting, here's our contingency plan if like Trump wins. Because people who are in the middle of fighting can only think about winning. They can only think about doing the work. They can't be the ones that are like doing contingency planning.
But why don't they? I just guess why isn't everyone just voting no?
I don't know. Like Elizabeth Warren put out a statement that she thought it was that Ben Carson answered the questions correctly, and it was important to move the process along to get a leader at HUD.
In all fairness, I feel like Ben
are kind of wonky.
Ben Carson is really he's just so HUD experienced. I mean,
so much HUD experience.
So much HUD. Like
so much HUD.
He's a doctor.
I mean, the other thing is like none of them are experienced.
Right.
Except for General Mattis.
Right. Who is experienced? He's like horrible.
I never thought I would actually have a little bit of faith in Mattis to be the reasonable one in the room.
He's vetted as very bad.
Yeah, but I also think I think the one thing that's good about him is that he is at least loyal to men and women and gender non-conforming people who serve in the military.
I doubt he really incorporates. I don't mean to burst your bubble. He may not be woke when it comes to transgender people.
Probably, totally not. But I
right.
can be.
I know.
Yeah. That's how it starts. But I think that
he cares about. I mean, he's pretty hawkish, right? So
he's also responsible, though, in terms of like he thinks about outcomes of situations because it's his troops that would die, and so I think that is. I've talked to several people that have served in the military under him who are super progressive, and they've all said that they feel better knowing that he's there, that he could end up being a check to Donald Trump. I want to see it happen.
Right. I think it's probably we're damning him with faint praise, which is that I'm sure he would let lots of soldiers die, which is what most hawks do, but probably like not more than usual, maybe.
Or like try to prevent some bad things because Trump has no military experience.
Right.
So I think that of the appointments, I think that Mattis might be a reasonable one in the room.
Right.
But
that's
at the end of the day, because Trump believes in, because Trump like wants to bring back torture and wants to bring back all of these things, we can't just be focused on domestic policy. we need to make sure that win without war and move on that does international work on foreign policy, that they are also being engaged and that they are fighting hard. And senators like Chris Murphy, who is really trying to lead on foreign policy and responsible foreign policy, that they're pushed forward into the spotlight as well.
Great.
Which is hard because we basically have to play on every single issue right now. We don't get to say that this is the week for student debt or this is the week for immigration.
Right.
Like, every day is fighting on every issue.
It's good our generation are such multitaskers.
Yeah,
and it's probably
we have to
terrible,
multitask.
honestly, in the long run, and we're not as productive. But maybe in this one, a post-Trump world requires that. Well, Melissa Byrne, thank you so much. And what's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is @MCBYRNE, and you can read more about me at melissa.FwdRad.io.
Great.
And feel free to reach out to me if there's issues I haven't covered.
Sure,
I'm
yeah.
always up to learning more.
Well, thank you so much. And,
yeah, thank you for having me on. And
yeah, thank you.
Local media is important. We need to keep you going.
Yes, thank you. And so if you if you win that, you got to get, I want to be hired. We're going to be hired by the DNC vice chair. We're going to be the official media of the DNC vice chair. I'm making
that sounds great.
Right? Sounds good, right?
That sounds great. I can't promise, but I will work to make that happen.
Thank you. That's the organizing that needs to be done. Thank you so much, guys. It's Katie Halper Show. Bye, Melissa. You can hear us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. WBAI.org, 99.5 FM, and we will see you next week. And our next live show is February 8th, the second Wednesday of February.